serial from 1943. The first adaptation of Batman outside the comic books ever. And it was cheap. Now, I don't have a lot of experience with these serials. Only with milk. Haha. So I didn't really know how much slack I could cut it and why. I mean, the Batsuit is ridiculous. The acting is ridiculous. But it was the early 40s. I mean, how can I be overly critical of that? But for some facts about the serial, for those of you who don't know, is it cereal or is it cereal or something like that? Because I keep thinking like I'm talking about cornflakes or something. The thing about this show is that it had 15 chapters. It started being released in movie theaters, I think, in 1943. So by this point, Batman had already been around, in comic books at least, for about 4 years. The story of the show revolves around the evil plans of this Japanese mad scientist called Dr. Daka, which was created specifically for the show, and Batman and Robin's attempts to foil his evil plans, but I think I already said that. So it's basically Batman and Robin versus Dr. Daka, the Japanese mad scientist. So one of the first conclusions that we can draw about this first Batman serial is that obviously it was very affected by the Second World War that was going on at that same time. So yes, the villain was Japanese pretty much, but while the show had racist connotations in the sense that I think the narrator pointed out a couple of times that those shifty-eyed Japanese did this or that, Batman himself as a character never said anything demeaning or derogatory about the Japanese people. So I think in a way the people that were working on the show kind of knew that anti-Japanese propaganda was bullshit. So at least in that way, like, the virtue of the superhero was intact. That being said, the thing that surprised me about this particular serial is that Batman and Robin in it are so incompetent. They're getting their asses kicked all the time. So these chapters have an average length of 16 to 17 minutes. Each single chapter you had the mandatory fight scene between Batman and Robin and a bunch of other dudes. 7 times out of 10, Batman and Robin will get their asses kicked. There's also no mention of Batman's origin or Robin's origin, no mention of dead parents anywhere in this show. So basically it's a show about 2 guys that are wearing their underwear outside of their pants, and they're walking around starting fights with evil henchmen, which they lose. Now I don't want to give you the impression that I hated it, because I wouldn't be doing this ambitious project, so to speak, if I was watching stuff that I at least find interesting. The interesting thing I found out about this first serial is that a lot of the things that we consider to be part of Batman canon now actually originated in this show. I'm talking about, for instance, Alfred, who, I read this on Wikipedia, so take it with a grain of salt. But at the time that the serial was coming out, Alfred in the comic books was presented as an overweight dude that was probably the same age as Bruce. But since this serial, which changed Alfred's physical appearance to be that of a tall British dude with a thin mustache, since then that's pretty much how we think of Alfred, as this tall, older gentleman with a thin mustache and excellent sarcasm. Also, the serial is the one that originated the concept of the Batcave, which actually in the serial I think it was called the Bat's Cave or something like that. So I think it's very interesting that some of the things that the producers of this particular show thought of in order to make Batman more cinematic and easier to film are some of the things that we now consider to be just Batman canon and just part of the Bat mythology without any question. The show also was very sciencey in the sense that there was a very big emphasis placed on technology and technological evil devices, but at the same time this is a mark of that particular era where the fear of technology certainly was present in a lot of science fiction. So all in all, these are 15 chapters of good, clean Batman fun. Very clean, in fact. It's just that they're always getting their asses kicked, and even like Dr. Daka in the end is defeated because Robin accidentally touches something that he isn't supposed to, and Dr. Daka just falls into a pit full of sharks. Well, isn't that heroic? So for Batman's first outing, this was definitely a very dry affair that tells you more about the time that it was made in than about Batman himself as a character. Again, no mention of his origin, and like anything that has Batman in it today, he's like, my parents are dead! So yeah, I think it was an interesting experience going back all the way back to the beginning of the Batman adaptations.